Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Huncho, back at you again with another video. This is the story of Iderval Da Silva, and it really does bring to light the moped crime problem we have in the UK, and how these young kids are taking part in these types of crimes. And if you remember, not too long ago, I did report on the murder of Tay. He was a Deliveroo driver, and he was stabbed in Finsbury Park after a road rage incident. Now, although this had nothing to do with moped theft or moped crime, it just goes to show you the problem that these delivery drivers face on a day-to-day basis. The fact that delivery drivers are essentially on the front lines against these types of criminals is mad to think. And a quick update on the Tay situation. Police do believe that the murderer has fled to Austria where an international manhunt is underway. And a protest against Deliveroo and Uber Eats was taking place in Highbury after Tay's death for calls for them to invest in stab-proof vest and other protective gear. I mean, come on, like, think about it. They're just trying to provide for their families. They're not any kind of criminals or anything like that. They're literally just going out, trying to get an honest day's living, and now they're wanting Deliveroo and Uber Eats to invest in these kind of protective equipments. So the story of Iderval Da Silva really does highlight the issues of moped theft that we have in the UK, and is a prime example of why these workers go on strikes. Police were called to Charlotte Despard Avenue, SW11, Battersea, at around 4:32 PM on Saturday 25th of May 2019 to report of what appeared to be a fight. When they arrived, they found 46-year-old Iderval Da Silva, who was a Brazilian immigrant and a former soldier who came to Britain just 3 months before his death to start his own martial arts school, and he was found with a head injury. Paramedics also turned up from London's ambulance service, who had then rushed him to King's College Hospital, Camberwell. Here, neurosurgeons tried to stem the bleeding, but 3 days later, he would unfortunately die with his son by his side. Neurosurgeons found that he had a catastrophic and untreatable bleed on the brain as a result of the violence inflicted against him. According to his friend, Cleverson said, his passion was using the Afro-Brazilian martial arts capoeira to help teenagers in tough inner city areas, something he had done in the US and Germany. So he's been to rough neighborhoods before in the USA. Now you have to really look at that and really see the problem that we have, that he's died 3 months being in London, even though he's been in rough neighborhoods in America. And in the weeks before his death, it was said he had been working to set up a project to help steer children in Battersea council estates away from drugs and crime. And just moments before he was attacked, he was giving out t-shirts to the children who would be taking part in the Sunday morning club, although there was conflicting reports that he was eating with friends. A post-mortem examination would take place and revealed the cause of death to be the head injury. The motive for the crime was moped theft, and it should be noted that his attackers didn't even make off with his moped. So a murder investigation was then launched by police from the Homicide and Major Crime Command. When investigating, police would find that members of the public, including Mr. Da Silva's friends, had witnessed the assault. Also, the incident was partially captured on CCTV, which formed a large part of the investigation, and a mobile phone was also left behind by one of the teenagers, which then led detectives to identify him and his associates. And between the 31st of May and the 20th of August 2019, police would make arrest on a group of 6 people. Jadan Richards, 19, Josiah Fraser, 18, 2 17-year-olds who can't be named for legal reasons, and another 2 16-year-olds who couldn't be named for legal reasons, but we now know one of them to be Tay Clovey. All 6 males were from Wandsworth, and they had denied murder at the Old Bailey on the 31st of August, where Judge Anthony Leonard QC had remanded the teenagers in custody ahead of their trial on November 25th, 2019. So, with the trial starting on the 25th of November, more in-depth details to what happened on May the 25th would emerge. Tony Badenoch QC prosecuting said, this case concerns the death of a man named Iderval Da Silva, who died trying to protect his own property, a scooter. He was 46 years of age, and at the time of his death, he'd been working as a delivery driver for the company Uber Eats. It was on a Saturday afternoon in Battersea on May 25th of 2019 that he parked his scooter outside a cafe in the sunshine. What was to happen shortly after had nothing to do with him other than the mere fact that he had owned the scooter. They were right behind him. Tay Clovey was sprinting and the group was cycling quickly to involve themselves. It was a momentary explosion of short-lived violence that killed Mr. Da Silva. It was clear from all their actions before, at the time and after that Mr. Da Silva was really of no concern to them other than for their own purposes. Mr. Da Silva was protecting his scooter in the Battersea area. He was eating with a group of friends. All the defendants were together nearby in the general area of the Vibes Cafe. That was an area they knew very well. Witnesses know these defendants by sight, having seen them on many occasions previously outside Vibes Cafe. Tay Clovey went up to the moped and tried to steal it. He got onto the scooter and had both his hands on the handlebar grips, trying to start it. Mr. Da Silva saw this and went quickly to seek to prevent him from stealing it by pushing him off. The response from Tay Clovey was not to leave him in his own property, but to punch him repeatedly. The co-defendants all arrived quickly and joined in by punching and kicking, or assisting and encouraging this attack by their very presence, whilst Mr. Da Silva was both on his feet and latterly when he was on the floor. At a later court date, it was heard Doreen Graham, who was sitting outside the cafe, told the jury she saw Mr. Da Silva run up to the moped and push a teenager off he was trying to jump on. She said, "I saw him get up pretty quickly and he ran towards this moped bike. I thought, what's going on? They were exchanging punches with each other. After about 3 punches, I saw 3 other guys come like a wildfire. I thought, this is going to be a war, and I just froze." It's been reported that Miss Graham was visibly distressed as she gave evidence. Sighing heavily and shaking her head, she described how the 4 young men started kicking and hitting Mr. Da Silva before another 3 teenagers ran in from the opposite side of the fight. As the gang hit Mr. Da Silva with blow upon blow to his chest and face, he had then fell to the ground. It was then that the fatal blow was dealt to Mr. Da Silva's head. She told the court how one of the gang kicked Mr. Da Silva twice as he was on the ground. Described only as the stomper in court, the young man then slowly lifted his right foot and stamped on Mr. Da Silva's head. She said the man was already on the floor and he kicked him on the side and then in his head. When he stomped on his head, I saw the man's body curl up and he just stayed there. There was pandemonium going on. Everyone got mixed up in the crowd and they scattered, and it was just the man and his bike on the floor. It was horrifying because he was bleeding from the mouth. I was feeling so unwell, and at that point I thought the man was already dead because of that kick. It was shocking, and I just went numb and said to myself, oh my god, I think he's dead. Another witness to the scene, Natalie Ferreira, described how her mother had rushed to try and help Mr. Da Silva escape, but it was unsuccessful. Miss Ferreira said, as my mum was trying to help him, talking about Mr. Da Silva, he had both arms up and he tried to gain his balance. My mum was grabbing him, he was still getting hit. She was trying to get him away from the boys. She was screaming, help him, help him. She was asking other people around to help. Miss Ferreira described how as the other boys ran away, only one cocky and overconfident boy stayed to kick Mr. Da Silva one more time before running off. It was then told to the court that Mr. Da Silva was rushed to King's College Hospital, Camberwell, a short time later with severe brain injuries, where unfortunately 3 days later he would pass away. And after the jury deliberated for more than 20 hours to reach its verdict, on the 2nd of January 2020, Jadan Richards 19, Tay Clovey 16, both from Wandsworth, were found guilty of murder at the Old Bailey. A 17-year-old who still can't be named for legal reasons was found guilty of manslaughter but was cleared of murder. Josiah Fraser 18 from Wandsworth and a 17-year-old who turned 18 the day of the verdict were both cleared of murder and manslaughter, and it was reported that midway through the trial another 17-year-old boy was cleared on the judge's directions. It was heard that family members of the killers wept as the verdicts were returned, and Judge Mark Dennis QC adjourned sentencing until the 5th of February 2020. Then on sentencing day, which was February the 5th, all 3 defendants reappeared at the Old Bailey in the dock in handcuffs because security officers feared they would fight in the dock. Richards had warned before the sentencing, "You better keep me away from him," in regards to the 17-year-old. Judge Mark Dennis told the killers the victim was defenseless, outnumbered, and struck while he was on the ground. The sudden outbreak of violence was witnessed by the members of public and left them shocked and frightened, and ended with the senseless death of a person who had done nothing wrong and only tried to stop someone from stealing his property. The judge would then go on to sentence Richard of Strasbourg Road, Wandsworth, to a life sentence with a minimum term of 13 years, and he shook his head at the judge as he was led away. Tay Clovey of Battersea was convicted of murder and jailed for life with a minimum term of 11.5 years. When he was sentenced, his mother sobbed loudly in the public gallery. The teenager, aged 17, had burst into tears as he was jailed for 4 years for manslaughter. It should be noted that Tay Clovey, due to his age, had his identity hidden, but after the trial had finished, Judge Mark Dennis had ordered that he should be named. But the judge ruled that the order which prevents identification of the 17-year-old who was convicted of manslaughter should remain in place. While passing the sentences, Judge Mark Dennis had said, "There's no reason to think that any of you were immature for your age at this time, nor that you would not have known that such an unnecessary and cowardly assault was both wrong and wholly unjustified." And that is the story of Iderval Da Silva. And I just want to pay my respects and say rest in peace to Iderval, and my condolences over this family at this time. Now, what's interesting about this is a few things. For one, just the mere age of the people that got convicted. And my advice to any 16, 17-year-old that's out there is just try and go to school, try and go to college, try and study, try and make something of yourself, because you don't want to end up in a position like this where, you know, you potentially killed someone. I don't know what position these kids could have been in, right? But you should never try and kill someone, especially a person who's working. Like one of the reports where where he was eating with friends and then was about to go do his job. And even if it was the other report where he was giving out t-shirts, it's very wrong of you to go and try and attack a man who is trying to work hard for himself. And my advice would be to literally just try and stick to the books and avoid situations like this. And I hear a lot of the times people saying London is safe, the UK is safe, we don't have a problem here. Well, explain to me how he's from Brazil, which is an extremely dangerous place, in the army, doesn't lose his life, goes to America, very dangerous place again, to inner city neighborhoods, he goes to extremely rough places, doesn't die, does the same thing with Germany. I can't really comment too much on Germany, but I'm guessing there's a lot of rough places in Germany, but he spends 3 months in the UK and loses his life because we have an extremely bad moped crime problem with these teenagers. And I don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but just to show you that we do have a problem and something does need to be done about it. But let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section below. Give the video a little like, and if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.